Okay, perfect. Okay. Hi, I'm Jane Bechtel. I'm a second year neuroscience major with a minor in legal foundations of society. And today we're going to be discussing DEI and the importance or the unimportance of it in America today.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Owens Morris, and I'm an African American Studies major um, and a non-traditional student.
I'm Seth George. I'm a fourth year English major.
So I guess the question we were kind of thinking about was based off the Center for Ethics and Humanities upcoming discussion around um, is DEI important in the university setting? Um, so I think at least for me, when I think about that question, um, I think there's so many different populations that DEI impacts
Mhm.
um, on a university campus that it's not it encompasses not just students, marginalized students of many groups, but it also encompasses staff and faculty too. And I think that's something that isn't always thought about um, or not at the forefront of the discussions, I think, in a lot of ways. It does make the work, I think DEI, at least from my perspective, makes the work of building community easier for staff and faculty with students, right? Because we can create spaces for different groups. But when we're speaking, like for this, when we're talking about race, I think that's the most compelling piece
Mhm.
that not everybody, that, and then it becomes the only thing we talk about in DEI.
Mhm. To your Another thing, like to your point about the staff, like also with that, it's like hiring a staff that looks like their students. Like I
Yeah.
came from a high school that had no, like it was an all white staff. And like my school is predominantly white anyway, so I guess that like reflected the student population, but there wasn't one. Like there legitimately was not one. So I think that that's another thing that like with staff too, it's yeah, it's not just I guess that's like affecting students in a
Mm-hmm.
inverse way, but like directly hiring um a population that looks like your students is super important too for that representation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. That I think when we're thinking about how important seeing yourself
Hmm.
is and that access that that creates.
Hmm.
That must have been really hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like, yeah, I guess like that's, I went to like a private Christian school, so that's kind of what you expect. And there were only like four other Asian people in the whole school, and then like I would say like 10 Black people, which, and then like the people would be like, oh, that's like a lot.
Oh,
They'd be like, wow, like I remember this, like my senior year of high school, my principal said like, oh, well, back when I went to school here, it was a lot worse. Like, okay. Like that's awesome. I don't know how that is supposed to make me feel better. But
It's not.
yeah, it was
It's
interesting.
progress, right? But
Yeah.
it's that it's uh it's that incremental progress that we're
Hmm.
supposed to accept as the as being okay, right?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, ugh, that's so hard. Seth, what are your thoughts?
I'm just thinking about how I don't know, just the main thing I guess I'm considering with DEI and like the importance of DEI from like the perspective that everyone sees it, where it's like, oh, they're letting unqualified students in, which obviously is not the case that I believe, but that seems to be the
Yeah,
pervading argument behind common acceptance of its like deletion in institutions. Um, is just yeah how important access to education is, and how I didn't really consider that staff representation, like how important that would be as like kind of a to signify access to education for students that otherwise might not see. Yeah, you see like an all white staff. I could see how that would form kind of the pathways in your head where it's like, okay, I am not of the sort who can even do this thing. Like,
right.
I see all my white teachers. This is not something that I can do. Like, that is not a path that is accessible for me. So I hadn't quite considered how the representation aspect of it in the teachers that you see further increases like your access to education and just yeah.
Uh, there's been a lot of studies around, and I can't pull like facts and figures out of my head right now, but around like just in like K through 12 setting of having like Black male teachers and the impact that has on especially Black youth,
Yeah.
Black male youth, in school settings. And it's just, as a white person, think about it because you are the standard,
Yeah.
right? You are the normal
Mhm.
and or the typical, and which is so it's just so weird that once you start unpacking that and you're like, but why am I the normal?
Mhm.
Right? Like why? Like there's all these other types of people that are out here. Why am I the standard? And um yeah, it just takes a little intellectual curiosity, I think, that people just aren't willing to have.
Mhm.
Um and I think it's also around discomfort. I fall back on that a lot. I think that and fear of losing their place
Yeah.
instead of realizing it's not pie.
Mhm.
It's not pie. Everybody can have some. Um, and I'm not being glib. I'm just like, but
Yeah, I guess I just
yeah,
don't like, I don't know. I guess I just don't understand like what people's problem is. Like, I genuinely like don't know what people's problem is. I guess it's like, yeah, like they don't want to lose their place. I mean, I know I've talked to some people who are like with affirmative action and stuff, like genuinely think like their spot was taken, like their spot would be taken. And I've had people say that to me, and I'm like, guys, I'm not the people that benefit from affirmative action.
Mhm.
I'm the people that are on the opposite. I'm the, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just people taking, yeah, I guess it's just what you said. They're worried that their spot would be taken. But like, even with that, like DEI is like a lot more than just spots. Like it's a
yeah,
lot more than doing all of that. And I guess with DEI like being dismantled, then like I guess it's up to like the professors and the universities themselves to like keep talking about it. Like you can still talk about it without having a program, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, but it makes it harder for students to find their spaces, right?
Hmm.
Like if it's set up the way we had it, not that it was perfect, and
Hmm.
it wasn't. If there's an office that oversees, and then you have a student life office as well, that, the Center for Belonging and Change, you know, I think that those spaces that were created to give access to the structure, right?
Mhm.
Like we talked about in class, the structure that we all work within because we haven't figured out a way to dismantle it. Um, it, it just literally cuts out whole swaths of people.
Mhm.
And going back to like why they don't get it, I think they're unwilling, like white people are unwilling to be in competition.
Mhm.
They think their spot is their spot, like is theirs no matter what. Whether they've worked for it, whether they that they are entitled to that spot based upon the color of their skin.
Right.
And therefore, that whole concept of meritocracy, which is a load of just white people are better than everybody. Um, it just fascinates me how that is so insidious. And yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, to if I could bring the conversation back a little bit to
absolutely.
like we're talking about like why it is people are so blind to or stubborn to like accept the reality behind like the necessity for DEI and things like that. Like I'm not even sure if in the case of most like your everyday white person, I guess, it is a necessarily like a conscious understanding of no, I'm not willing to give up my spot. Or if it's I think and this kind of ties in with like the colorblind concept we were talking about last episode. I think that ideology is way more pervasive than I think that's kind of the standard norm by which we view race relations now is that everyone is like, well, not everyone, sorry, the dominant majority is like, yeah, colorblind. That's what it is. Like, I don't see color. There's no such thing as color. Therefore, any inequities that you're perceiving, well, it's for some other reason. I think it's most people are unwilling to recognize that they even have a place. Like by saying like, oh, that providing access to people who have been denied access. Like in
Mhm.
order to even have that conversation, they have to acknowledge that like I am part of and benefit from a system that is unfair, that denies access to some people in order to give it to me. And I think with a lot of people, I don't know if it's like, I mean, there's a bunch of reasons I think, but I think it's to do with like what we've been told in school, like everyone's been told in school, like this is land of the free, yada yada, meritocracy, like you get what you work for, and for like a white student, it's very easy for them to perceive that as true because they're not facing obstacles that are showing them that like, oh no, you don't get what you work for. Things are not available to you. So I think it forces them to like totally reconsider the position that they have in the world, even if
Mhm.
they're not aware, like, oh, I don't want to give up my place. It's like they don't even want to say that they have a place because that kind of invalidates this, yeah, that like meritocratic, like I worked for what I have and all that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you're spot on that. That yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think the well, and I think there's a large percentage of white people that think, well, we've had a black president,
Mm,
so obviously everybody can do that now,
yeah.
right? And um so there's should be nothing that's stopping anyone. But what we see, those that dig a little deeper recognize, or at least I think try to see how the system doesn't allow for or doesn't make it as accessible.
Hmm. And I think like in just in general of like people in America, there's just like a big lack of empathy. Like I feel like it's just if I'm not experiencing it, then like nobody's experiencing it type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's just like not how life works, how it's working. So it's like, um, they're like, oh well, DEI getting dismantled, that like doesn't do anything to me. Then
So
it's
it
like
doesn't matter.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Yeah.
What about the concept of that about, oh, hold on, I just lost my train of thought. Um, that we are such an individualistic society
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
that that kind of plays into that empathy, right? Like we make it on our own, and nothing is actually given to anybody. Which duh, but it's kind of like what Seth was talking about, the whole there's people that literally start on third base because of their skin color, or start on maybe first base because of their skin color. Then you have people that are rich that start on second or third base, depending on that, and all of these different things give you different levels of access to the system and put you further or farther ahead depending upon those markers.
mhm,
What are your thoughts?
I agree. That's interesting. I was thinking about that. Just like how our society, the construction of it might not make it more difficult, but just why it makes sense that I think there is like a certain lack of empathy. Because you're right. I think the I don't know capitalist structure that we exist in is very much based on competition and the idea that like you're not winning unless someone else is losing. It's like
Yes.
we've been told like empathy and stuff, golden wood, like all that's nice, but like there's this almost like sanctity and like holiness to the idea of like you gotta stomp on someone else's toes. Like if you're doing this, if you're to part of my language, like fucking somebody else for your own sake, for the sake of getting ahead, like that's okay somehow.
Yeah.
So it kind of like, yeah, there's like this kind of perverse like subconscious justification to like stepping on other people based on how we perceive like what it means to get ahead and like what it is to do great things is to I don't know beat everybody else.
mhm,
Yeah, there's no collective thought, right? And I wonder if that's part of why it was easy to dismantle things like this that are around community.
Mm,
Is I really, and I've been thinking about this a lot, that white people really struggle to make community.
mm.
I mean, we do,
Yeah,
right? Like I'm like we just really struggle to make it a community that is what it's supposed to be, like uplifting and looking out
yeah,
for each other, and and maybe that's part of the pushback, is that you see these other other peoples that you are supposed to be farther along than, and you haven't evolved enough to figure out how to make a community.
yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know why I'm getting like the scene from Harry Potter, like when Harry Potter's talking to Voldemort's like in his head and he's like you'll never know friendship and I feel bad for you.
Yeah,
But you're
yeah.
right. I think that's interesting because white people being like the dominant group. I think the concept of whiteness, when you think about it, like in order to achieve this flattened binary of like you're black or you're white, like we necessarily erased the culture within blackness, and we also like in order to achieve that you also had to erase the culture within whiteness. It's like
Yeah,
you're no longer this, you're no longer this, we are white now. And
right.
seeing other groups reclaim or just have like, oh yeah, we are a community based on culture and tradition and practice, and like looking inward and it's like fuck, like we don't have any of that. Like
mhm,
we are on top, but we have denied ourselves culture in order to get there. And that's, yeah, definitely probably like a big point of dissonance, I guess, when looking from within.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is like something that I have noticed with like my friends that are white. It's like they, a lot of people, not necessarily my friends, but like people that I know who are like, it's like they want to be oppressed, if that makes sense. Like it's like
Yeah,
the oppression Olympics. Like they
that's
want something to like they want something to like be discriminated against. If that like I don't know why. Yeah, maybe it goes back to your point about like how they don't have community and they see like minorities like forming communities now and like being proud of like their culture and how it's different, and then they don't have that maybe, and so then they like feel like they have to overcompensate. Like I genuinely don't know what it is, but I have noticed that like some people I know like really want to be like just like I genuinely don't know why. I'm like, why are you like trying to flex this? Like you don't want that. You know
yeah.
what I mean? It's
Do you
so
think it's kind of, and I agree wholeheartedly around that, but do you think it's kind of around like victimhood? And
yes,
it's
yes.
it's that also the whole, because I have nothing to to be rooted in, like
Mhm.
so I'm gonna try and figure out something, and they think that being rooted in something is around oppression.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a sociologist to try to unpack all that, but it is fascinating to me as well. That it's just like,
Ooh, yeah. That's an interesting point. I wonder if it's on the back, yeah, what you said about like, from I guess the white perspective, what we see, we're not part of these in groups that are being formed, these cultural in groups. What we see is complaints about oppression that is levied up onto them by us. So our perspective of like, okay, what is this culture? What is a group? It's people talking about the ways that they're oppressed because we don't see the in group dynamics that they
no,
have created the beautiful aspect. We see what is being done to them. So I wonder if, yeah, to those people that then like are like white people who want this sense of group identity, the blueprint that we have is like, okay, well, the only thing I ever hear like that I am privy to being spoken about from my perspective is manners of oppression and dealing with oppression. So I would, that's kind of like where they start is like group identity based on this is how I get treated. And I don't know, that might just be nonsense, but
I mean, it makes sense that because there's no curiosity of trying to understand the out group that has now created their own group,
mm,
so you're gonna focus on what you know about them. So
yeah.
it's stereotypes and how they've been treated. I also think that if you can get ahead of the game saying that I'm oppressed too,
Mm-hmm.
then because I think the fear and that's undergirding all of this is if in the event that Black people create a Black world,
Yeah.
which could possibly happen, then we would be oppressed.
Yeah.
And that the things that we did to people could be done to us.
Mm,
And I think there is a deep seated, I mean, that's why slavery was that that's that was the whole concept of the brutality in
mm,
slavery, and is that we can't have an uprising because there's more of them than us,
yeah.
and they're gonna, then what happens then, right? I don't
Mhm.
know. Well,
Mm,
we're right about time.
okay.
Thoughts?
Wish Josh was here.
This
Yeah.
up?
To to give us a one liner to
I
finish it
know,
all
I
off.
know. Josh had the mic drop last time. Darn it.
Nope, I got nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just really I go back to the representation thing.
Mm,
Hmm.
And I
Me
think
too.
the dismantling of DEI at the university level, just for that sheer fact alone, is is it's going to create a very chilling effect
Mhm.
for everyone, I think,
Mhm.
in how we interact with each other. Well, I mean, we can do better, right? Like individually,
Mhm.
but having spaces for and seeing representation for marginalized groups and actually internalizing that as a white person, I think we're gonna miss out.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna stop recording now.